Hello and welcome to today's edition of the Daf Yomi, Daf 5, Amud A of Bekhorot. So let's dive straight in. Ufasku. And then the sanctity ceased following the census. The Gemara asks, granted, according to Reish Lakish, who hold that the firstborn were not sanctified following the census until they entered Eretz Yisrael. The reason is as he said, it is written, and it shall be when the Lord shall bring you into the land of the Canaanites, which has set apart all firstborn of the womb of the Lord, Exodus 13:11-12. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, who holds that the firstborn continued to be sanctified following the census, was reason the source for his opinion. Rabbi Elazar said, I saw Rabbi Yochanan in a dream, which is a sign that I am saying a proper matter in explaining his opinion. This verse states, for all the firstborn are mine. On the day that I smote all of the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I sanctified to me all the firstborn in Israel, both man and animal. Mine they shall be, I am the Lord. Numbers 3:13. The additional phrase, mine they shall be, indicates that they shall be, I shall remain, in the current state of sanctity. The Gemara asks, and as for Rabbi Yochanan, with regard to the verse, and it shall be when the Lord shall bring you and shall set you apart, what does he do with it? The Gemara answers, that expression is necessary to teach that which the Tana of the school of Rabbi Shmuel taught. Perform this mitzvah on account of which you will be privileged to enter into Eretz Yisrael. Rav Mordechai, who is Rav Mordechai? Rav Mordechai was the 6th or 7th generation Babylonian Amora. He related many statements of the early Amoraim which he received from other sages, possibly the sages of Hagronia, where he lived. He was apparently a student of Rav Ashi, and he appears a number of times in the Talmud citing halachic traditions in the presence of Rav Ashi. By citing statements and traditions that differed from those known to Rav Ashi, Mordechai was able to offer alternative approaches to the difficulties being discussed as occurs in the Gemara. Rav Mordechai lived for an extended period of time following Rav Ashi's death, and when the next generation of Amoraim were uncertain with regard to halachic matters and sent inquiries to him, he informed them what he had heard from Rav Ashi with regard to the matter. Although another sage named Rav Mordechai, who was student of rabbis found elsewhere in the Talmud, it is difficult to assume that it was the same person. Said Rav Ashi, you teach the dispute between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish in this manner, whereas we teach it in the opposite manner. Rabbi Yochanan says that the firstborn were not sanctified in the wilderness, and Reish Lakish says that the firstborn were sanctified in the wilderness. Rav Ashi said to him, and do you also reverse the objection raised by one against the other? Do you also reverse that which Rabbi Elazar said, that he saw Rabbi Yochanan in a dream and interpreted his opinion to be referring to Reish Lakish instead? Rabbi Mordechai said to him, according to my tradition, when Rabbi Yochanan stated that the firstborn in the wilderness were not sanctified, he meant that they did not need to be consecrated, i.e., one who wished to sacrifice a firstborn lamb did not need to consecrate it, as they were already sanctified as firstborns. Reish Lakish disagreed. The Gemara asked, if so, that is the same as our tradition, that in Rabbi Yochanan's opinion the firstborn that were born in the wilderness were sanctified, and in Reish Lakish's opinion they were not. For what purpose then did Rav Mordechai inform Rav Ashi of his alternative version of the dispute? The Gemara answers that it teaches that a person must say that he was taught in the precise language employed by his teacher. With regard to the obligation of the sanctity of the firstborn in the wilderness by the Levites, the Gemara relates that Contorocos, there are several explanations for the name of this man, who was an officer or possibly commander in the Roman army. One opinion is that it is an adaptation of the Roman name Quietus. According to all versions of this incident, he was a Roman officer who was in Eretz Yisrael during the years before the destruction of the Second Temple. During those generations, there were already numerous Romans, primarily from the aristocracy, who took an interest in Judaism and its writings. Some even converted. These Romans often studied the Bible, presumably using the Septuagint, and were capable of asking sophisticated questions. The officer asked Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, in the individual count of each family of the Levites, you find that there were 22,300, these numbers 322 to 34, but in the collective count of the entire tribe, you find a total of 22,000. As is stated, all the males from a month old and upward were 22,000, numbers 339. Where then did the other 300 Levites go? Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to him that the total sum includes only those Levites who redeemed the Israelite firstborn. Those additional 300 Levites were themselves firstborns, and a firstborn Levite cannot abrogate the sanctity of a firstborn Israelite. The Gemara asks, what is the reason? Abai says, it is sufficient for a Levite's firstborn to abrogate his own firstborn sanctity. Additionally, Contricus asked Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, with regard to the collection of silver by Moses for the tabernacle, you find that the total amount is 201 talents and 11 manna, as it is written that they amassed a beker, a head, that is half a shekel of the shekel of the sanctuary, for 603,550 men, Exodus 38:26, which totals 301,775 shekels. This sum equals 201 talents and 11 manna, as each talent contains 1,500 shekels or 60 manna, and each manna contains 25 shekels. But with regard to the giving of the silver to the tabernacle, you find only 100 talents. As it is written, 100 talents of silver were for casting. Exodus 38:27. Now, was Moses your teacher a thief, or was he a gambler? Kuvius, from the Greek kubitus, which means a gambler. The word originates from kubia, the Greek word for dice. And there's a picture here, if you have this on page 27, an amphora with depiction of Greek warriors gambling. Or was he not an expert in accounting? He gave half of the money for the tabernacle and took half for himself, and he did not return even a complete half to the tabernacle. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to him, Moses, our teacher, was a trustworthy treasurer and was expert in accounting, but a manna of the sanctuary, which was used to measure the 100 talents used for the sockets, was double. This phenomenon, which is proven here from an analysis of the relevant verses, existed as well in other ancient societies. For instance, two types of weights were in Mesopotamia, one standard weight for ordinary people and one of double value used by the kingship. The value of a standard manna, i.e. 50 shekels instead of 25 shekels. Therefore, the 100 talents given by Moses were equivalent to the 200 talents that was collected from Jewish people. Ravachi discusses it. What point of difficulty for Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that forced him to offer this answer? Was it the verse, and the 300 talents of silver were for casting the sockets of the sanctuary in Exodus 38:7? If so, one can explain that these 100 talents were designated for casting the sockets, and the other 100 talents that are not mentioned here were placed in the treasury. The Gemara answers that another verse is written that discusses the total sum collected, and only 100 talents are mentioned. And the silver talents of those that were numbered of the congregation was 100 talents. Exodus 38:25. The Gemara asks, and with regard to that which Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to Controcus, that a manna of the sanctuary was double the value of a standard manna, from where does he derive this? If we say that it's derived from the verse itself that Controcus mentioned, Exodus 38:27, that the derivation would be as follows. In addition to the 100 talents, additional silver coins are mentioned here that equal 71 manna. As is stated, and of the 1,775 shekels, he made hooks for the pillars in Exodus 38:28, which equal to 1 talent, 60 manna plus an additional 11 manna. And the verse counted them only using the value of small coins, 8 shekels, and not in talents. And if it is so that a manna of the sanctuary was of equal value to a common manna, then the verse should have expressed this value using large coins, writing 101 talents and 11 manna. Rather, since the verse counts this value only using the value of small coins, learn from it that a manna of the sanctuary was double the value of a standard manna and equals 50 shekels. Therefore, the 1,775 shekels mentioned are worth only 35.5 manna, which is less than a full talent or 60 manna. The Gemara rejects this proof, but perhaps the total amount of shekels does not equal the amount of a talent, but the verse calculates general amounts, i.e. hundreds of talents. In talents, the verse does not calculate the details, i.e. in any amount less than 100 talents. In talents, but in shekels. Rather, the principle that a manna of the sanctuary is double the value of a common manna is derived from the hair, and the brass of the offering was 70 talents and 2,400 shekels in Exodus 38:29. The Gemara explains, aside from the 70 talents mentioned, there are an additional 96 manna here, which is equivalent to 1 talent, and an additional 36 manna. And the verse counts them using the value of small coins. Learn from it that a manna of the sanctuary was double the amount of a standard manna, and that is why the number of shekels mentioned did not equal a full talent. The Gemara rejects this proof as well, but perhaps the verse is referring to a standard manna, and the verse calculates a large unit, i.e. tens of talents, in talents, while the verse does not calculate a small unit, i.e. any amount less than 10 talents in talents. Rather, Rav Chisda says that the claim that a manna of the sanctuary was double the size of a standard manna derived from here, and the shekel shall be 20 geva, 20 shekels, 25 shekels, 10 and 5 shekels shall be a manna. In Ezekiel 45:12. So what does the note mean? What does this mean? Esrim shekalim, chamish ve'esrim v'chol hamana yiyalochem. The early commentators asked why the verse did not simply say 60 shekels shall be a manna. To cite the explanation of Rabbeinu Tam, which is based on the Torah of Yonatan. And the verse refers to different weights that were used at the time in the temple, all of which combined to the sum of a manna of the sanctuary. Other early commentators explain Ezekiel's statement that they should not create one weight of manna, but rather multiple ones that can be used individually and combined together to the total weight of a manna, with the Umbava to 90a. The remarks, by contrast, explains that Ezekiel is saying that they may create new coins of different values, such as 20 shekels, and the prophet merely adds parenthetically that all of the coins mentioned add up to the value of a manna of the sanctuary. From the discussion in the Gemara here, it appears that the weight of the shekels did not change, just the number of shekels in a manna. Therefore, Ezekiel is saying that the value of a manna, which was worth 50 shekels, is now worth 60 shekels. Tosfot also note that the Gemara on 50a reports that at some point in history 4 manna were added to the weight of a shekel. It is unclear precisely when this occurred. Rabbeinu Yitzchak of Dampier explains that this verse is referring to that change, and Ezekiel is therefore saying as follows: the value of a manna remains 50 shekels, but because the weight of each shekel increased by 4 ma'ah, is now equivalent to the weight of 60 shekels of the old currency, which is equivalent to 20. Rabbeinu Tam, however, explains that these two passages refer to two distinct occurrences. One of them occurred in the times of Ezekiel, when a manna of the sanctuary became worth 60 shekels, while the other occurred in the period of the sages, when both the standard shekel and the shekel of the sanctuary ascended to the value of 24 standard ma'ah. In this verse, Ezekiel defines the various weights used in the temple and says that each silver shekel consists of 20 geva. In addition, the combination of 20, 25, 10, 5 shekels yields a total sum of 60 shekels, which is the value of a manna. A manna, in turn, is equivalent to 100 shekels. Thank you for listening, and that's the end. Take care. All the best. Bye.